Hey, it's Johara. Welcome back to my channel. So, I did one of my live reading sprints with my book friends earlier, and one of them, Kristen, who's Moonlit Books. You should definitely check out her channel. You should check out all their channels. But she asked for book recommendations for fantasy. And I'm like, if you want fantasy recs, come to me because that's like 98% of what I read, which you should all know now. I should have changed my channel to fantasy books, but I don't because Secrets is the best thing to ever happen to me. Even though it's not fantasy, which is really funny to me, you know. Fantasy is my favorite genre, it's 98% what I read, but then there's Aaron Hunter's books, and Secrets just owns my heart. So, yeah. But anyways, um, and then I was like, and then she said I should make a whole YouTube video of just recommending books to Kristen. I was like, you know what? I love that idea. Let's do it. So that's what we're doing today. We are going to recommend books to Kristen, fantasy books, and anyone else. If you guys like these options, if you guys want to read them, then feel free because a lot of the books that I read are very underrated. At least I think they're underrated because I never hear anyone talk about them except for Harry Potter. But other than that, all these books are pretty much underrated, at least in my eyes, because like I said, I don't really hear anyone talk about them. There is a few books that I bought recently that I haven't actually read yet that are not underrated, because I know a lot of people love them and talk about them. Book 2, Percy Jackson's one of them. I don't really hear people talk about Heroes of Olympus that much, but I know Percy Jackson isn't underrated. I'm finally going to read that. And then read the Ashes, stuff that I've been anticipating for years. I'm going to read the Shadow and Bone trilogy along with Six Crows and um, King of Scars duologies. Those aren't underrated, but I'm going to read those soon. But other than that, I think everything else is underrated. I might be wrong, but at least I don't hear anyone talk about them. But, oh, and another one of my book friends, Jessica, at Lady Lovestead Reads, she and I apparently are going to do a buddy read soon. She is almost done with Shadow and Bone, and she wants to buddy read Six Crows with me, and I'm like, let's do it. After I'm done with what I'm currently reading, I'm going to read Shadow and Bone, and then once we're caught up, we're gonna buddy read Six Crows and maybe even King of Scars because why not? But I find that I've been wanting to buddy read with someone for a while now because I think it sounds fun, you know, to just buddy read with someone, both read the same book at the same time and then get to talk about it. What's that fun about that? So yeah, and so I don't know if you guys have seen my bookshelf tour that I recently did when I finally organized my bookshelves. Well, it was organizing bookshelves. I haven't done the actual bookshelf tour yet, which I plan on doing soon. I was thinking about waiting until my bookshelves are a little bit more full, but at the same time, don't know when that will be, because I'm not buying books right now. I bought a lot of books, and I really need to read them before I buy any more. But this shelf is basically books that have some sort of movie tied to the book, like an adaptation. Whether or not the movie came first, book or movie came first, because I know it's rare for a movie to come before a book, but I actually have a few where the movie or TV show came first. So yeah. Because I actually have a few where there was like a movie or TV show that were, I guess people just really loved, so they wrote a book that had to do with it. I don't know. But then my second shelf over there, that has to do with all my books that don't have a movie tied to them. Then I have this tinier shelf over here that has all my Aaron Hunter books, so I will not be suggesting any of those because those aren't fantasy. But, you know, if you want 4 great characters and action and adventure and friendship, read Seekers, because I have to recommend Seekers. It wouldn't be a Secret Books channel without recommending Seekers. But then is my last shelf. This has pretty much become just my charmed bookshelf because I just have this shelf here, laying here, and there's 41 charmed books, and they're really small, so they can fit on this shelf because the shelf's kind of narrow, if you can see that. I have a lot of bigger books that can't fit it, but the charm books can. So yay, that kind of became my charm shelf. So yay. Okay, so we will start here. These have a lot to do with adaptations, so I'm not sure I'm gonna really recommend too many on the shelf, just because I don't know if any of you have really seen these adaptations, except for Shadow of Bone and Six Crows, of course. Because Six Crows I did hear is gonna get adaptation. Don't know if that's just talk, but let's see. Um, so let's see. I don't know how many of you have watched Hocus Pocus. I know it's pretty popular. Most people, it's kind of like Harry Potter, honestly. Most people have watched it, and even if you haven't, you know the name Hocus Pocus because it's just that famous. Kind of like Harry Potter. And Hocus Pocus is getting a sequel soon, which I mentioned in recent videos. I'm going to be very disappointed if the sequel is not like this sequel, because this sequel was just amazing, breathtaking. It was just, I love it so much. So if you have read or watched Hocus Pocus, definitely read this. It does start out with the movie Hocus Pocus, but that's less than half of it, and then the rest is 25 years later with Max and Allison's lesbian daughter, and her black best friend, and her black female crush. So it's about the three of them, and her frenemy, because I guess she's kind of a frenemy. But yeah, it's about them, and they actually go through the whole Sanderson thing again, but with twist. There's a twist. I don't want to spoil it for you, so I won't tell you that much. But yeah, so and this is also a great read for this month because the main character is a lesbian, and it's Pride Month, so this should definitely be. So if you do decide to get some of these books this month, this should definitely be the first one to read if you like Hocus Pocus, obviously, because yeah, Pride Month. Uh, okay, so a lot of these I haven't actually read yet. On the bottom part over here, but the top part, I'm not sure if anyone would have watched any of these, like Monster High. I don't know if you guys would watch that, or Descendants. So we'll just move on to this shelf because there's a lot more recommendations over here. Okay, I'm moving Jasmine over here. Okay, so first recommendation is my most recent read, not including the book I'm currently reading, obviously. The last book I finished, which has immediately become one of my favorite books, and you will definitely see it on my favorite books of 2021 at the end of the year. Which is The Exile of Shade and Shadow. It's definitely a great read. I do highly recommend it. The main characters are Astra and Luco. Astra has powers, and it was after the Great War was won. Astra and Luco both played important roles in the war, and Astra supposedly finished the war by killing the main bad guy, Tyrant, but she has suspicions that he's not alive, and she ends up getting exiled from her home because her powers became too unstable, because she, unlike most people in their kingdom, she wasn't trained with them because she was separated from her family and raised by other people, so she wasn't properly trained with her magic as like her brother was. But and then Luco had a bad family life. His mother died, his sister and uh, father abused him, and it's terrible. But she ends up having to go to his kingdom so he can keep an eye on her. Her brother, it was Astra's brother's orders, and then she could do research. But her exile was a secret. But then you get to see the amazing friendship her and Luco form, and how they slowly begin to trust one another and would die for each other. I love reading the end with Astra was. I don't want to spoil too much, but Luco gets insanely worried about her, and all he cares about is fighting her and saving her, and it's just amazing. But I absolutely love them. There's not really a romance in here. I mean, Astra and Luco's relationship is like, on one hand, I would have been okay if it became something more. I even started shipping them at one point because I was like, this is definitely a typical enemies to lovers because they hated each other when the book first started. So I was like, they're definitely going to fall in love. They didn't in the first book. I don't know if they will in one of the other books in the series because the second book comes out sometime in July. But so at one point I would be okay with their relationship progressing because I think it would be really cute. And I love the trust they formed and how they built a friendship before it became something more. Because a lot of enemy lovers will go from enemies to lovers, and then with them it would have been like enemies to friends to lovers. But at the other point, I love their friendship so much, and I would be okay if it stayed that way as well because their friendship is just so amazing, and I've gotten obsessed with this book lately. Okay, so let's see. If you like Harry Potter, you should read Secrets of the Mortal Nicholas Flamel, but you do not have to read Harry Potter to enjoy this book because in the first book, they mentioned Nicholas Flamel a couple times. He was the creator of the Sorcerer's Stone, and that's what this series is about, Nicholas Flamel. But that's really the only tie it has to Harry Potter, so you can definitely enjoy this without having ever read or watched Harry Potter. The first two books I do not have with me right now because I let a friend borrow them, but this is the third book, and it's basically about two twins who they're very close. They moved around a lot, so they're really all each other have, and then they end up finding out that they have powers and that they are a part of this war that's been going on for centuries before they were born, and all of a sudden they are thrown into it with Nicholas and his wife and this warrior Scatty, who I love, Scathach. I think that's how you pronounce it, but she's probably one of my favorite characters. So is Paranel. I mean, the women on here are just so epic, and definitely they're just amazing and fierce and strong. I love it. But yeah, you should definitely check out this series. There's 6 books in all. The next book I want to recommend is in my bedroom, so give me a minute. I brought this whole trilogy to my room because I'm currently tabbing it because I read it recently. And then I got tabs and started tabbing books, and I don't know when the next time I'm going to read this is, so I want to tab it so that I can, if I want to just go to one of my favorite scenes, I can just find the tab and go there without having to search for it, which is why I started tabbing in the first place. So yeah, this trilogy is the Effigies trilogy, and it follows Maya, who has always admired the effigies. The effigies are 4 women who each one control a different element. When one dies, another one gets her powers, and her past life kind of becomes into her, and it's like they call this scrying, where she can just kind of summon her past lives. The one, like the very first effigy in her elements, will be the hardest to find, even though they do have to try to find her. But the one that died last is the freshest to conjure up. And Maya finds out that she's the next fire effigy after Natalia dies. And she didn't want to be an effigy. She always thought it was cool, but recently she went through a whole trauma. A year ago, her parents and twin sister died in a terrible fire that she survived. Now she lives with her uncle. She's 16, and so yeah. So she was only 15 when she pretty much lost everything, and it's really sad. But she ends up having to go with them because there's this new guy who all of a sudden claims he's the 5th effigy, which is impossible, and he has these powers no one understands because the effigies are supposed to fight phantoms and save people. Phantoms are, well, phantoms. I'm sure you all know what phantoms are, but they're dark creatures. In the 3rd book, you actually find out how phantoms are kind of formed, which I think is kind of fascinating. But anyways, so she has to go with Aiden Rice, who's one of the who's a soldier for the sect. The sect is kind of like, I guess, the government. They kind of I guess, I don't know how to put it. It's like they control the FGs almost. They like tell them, I guess, what to do, where to go, and whatever. Their missions, I guess. And he pretty much has to accompany her, and they have to. And the FGs normally work alone for the most part, but with this new villain, and since everything doesn't seem as, black and white as they used to think, they have to bring all the FGs together to figure out this new bad guy and figure out what the heck is going on. But yeah, this is definitely a great series. It's one of my absolute favorite fantasy series, so I definitely give this a recommend. So I definitely recommend this, Kristen, and anyone else who wants to read this because it definitely deserves it. I'll put this here for now. Okay. I didn't mean to do that. This trilogy is the Skin Jacket Trilogy by Neil Shusterman. I mentioned it in the chat. But it's really good. It's about this, at the very beginning, there's two cars collided and crashed. And then a teenage girl from one car and a teenage boy from another car wake up and they're dead. And they're in this place called Everlost. And they have to, and they both want to go find out what happened to their families because they woke up 9 months after the crash. Because after you die and wake up in Everlost, if you don't go to the lights, if it's not your time, or if you can't get to it, which I don't want to explain it too in detail because I don't want to spoil anything. But basically, you hibernate for 9 months and then you wake up. And there in Everlast, there's things that can cross into Everlast. So like, let's say a rope burned, and then technically it's no longer in the living world and is in the in Everlast because everything crosses over. If something bad happens to something, or someone, it goes to Everlast. And like, they can only walk on what's called dead spots. Like, let's say a building was burned, and even if the living world had rebuilt it, it's technically a dead spot because something tragic happened there, and they can walk on it. But yeah, but they have to stop this evil monster, the greatest Everlost monster or whatever. And the character I hate most in any book is in this series. That's the one downfall of the series, is that I cannot stand her. And every scene with her, I just want to strangle somebody. Like, I've never hated a character this much. Not even Umbridge from Sneaky Harry Potter. She's horrible. So you can only imagine how terrible this character is. But anyways, they do end up having to go. Allie and Nick, that's the two people that's about, end up having to basically try and save the living world because the character I told you I hate is trying to destroy it. Yeah, so like I told you, she's pretty horrible. She thinks it's alright to murder children and bring them to Everlost to go under her reign. I hate her. Now, I haven't really read any duologies. I know I'm going to be reading Six of Crows and King of Scars soon, but I haven't really read any duologies. I'm not big on standalones either. I do read a few trilogies, but I do prefer a bit longer series because there's just more to them in my opinion. But there's one duology that I absolutely love. I will be rereading this soon because it's been too long and I really want to tab it anyways. So yeah, and that is Bewitched in Oz. It is so good. It's about Ziri Greenapple who has magic and she lives in Oz, and her two best friends, Vashti and Tabitha, have magic as well. So does her crush's little brother Brink. So they all, and magic's illegal. So they all go and they all always sneak off to practice their magic because they love that part of themselves. It's like a part of who they are. And one thing I love about Ziri is that she is passionate and determined, and nothing can stop her. She is amazing and a force to be reckoned with. If she truly believes that her power is worth saving, she will do anything to save it, and because she believes that is a part of who she is, and she's not willing to give that up. So I love that. She's definitely an empowered protagonist to read about. But one day the flying monkeys catch them and takes Tabitha. So three of them are now outlaws, and they have to go on a journey to save Tabitha and to find a way to make magic legal again. And there's also a glass cat. Kind of reminds me of the Cheshire Cat from Wonderland because he always disappears and reappears whenever they need him. And but he's a glass cat, and I kind of like it, and he's funny. But I definitely love Ziri, and I have mentioned this. I haven't mentioned it recently in any recent videos, which makes me sad. But I absolutely love Brink. I have like a list of characters I call my cinnamon roll characters because they're just the sweetest characters ever. Victoria from the Effigies trilogy is one of them, and so is Nick from the Skinjacker trilogy. And then there's Brink from Bewitched Oz because three of them are just cinnamon rolls. They're too good for this world, and I just love them so much. um, so yeah, definitely check out this duology if you want an awesome story because I love it. This is another trilogy, the Stormmakers trilogy. It's not as good as some of the other ones I recommended, but I still liked it. The first book, I think I rated 5 stars, and then the second and third, the second one was 4 stars, and then the third was 4.5. I mean, I think I put down 4, but it's a 4.5, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look, but I'm pretty sure that's what I rated them. First book follows Dorothea, and she's a princess and pretty selfish. I did not like. There's three main characters: okay, Dorothea, Kato, and Rexy. I hated all three when I first started reading the series. I've never read a series where I could not stand all the main characters. There's usually someone I love, which is why I still keep reading. I don't know why I kept reading this, but I'm glad I did because Dorothea and Kato had such great character arcs. They really grew on me, and now I love them both so much, especially Kato. He grew on me a little bit more than Dorothea. But Rexy did grow on me a tiny bit at the end of this book when she sacrificed, with the sacrifice. I don't want to spoil too much. But, yeah, and, uh, I'm out of breath. Okay, but then I don't like her again in the second book, which the second book follows her point of view only. And that made me sad because Dorothea and Kato wasn't on as much. And then the third book follows Dorothea and Rexy, goes back and forth. Why couldn't I have a book that follows Kato? I don't know why. He's my favorite character. He deserves to have a follow. But no, he doesn't get his own point of view, apparently. I'm gonna go cry in my corner now. But it is a good trilogy, and I do like it. There's a lot of magic, and it's also in Oz because Dorothea, kind of like Dorothy, Rexy's daughter of Robin Hood. There's some baggage there, but it is a good trilogy, and I like it. Um, so yeah, I say give this a read if you like fairy tales and magic and well fantasy. This is why you're all here, right? Uh, Here is the Shadow Realm Chronicles. The first book. I'm currently reading the second book for the first time. Because third book just came out. I'm catching up in the series. I kind of know the author a little bit. We've talked before, and yeah. So that's cool, and it's basically about like there's this. This is after many. So this is after the Great War with armies and darkness toward part of the world, but then another war is forming. Maeve is in the center of that, because Marius, the leader of all vampires, turned her into a vampire. She was a mother and a wife, and then um, Marius turns her into a vampire, and then everyone turns on her. Her son was only an infant though, and then yeah, and she ends up becoming the Shadow King's wife. It doesn't really say how that happened. It's just time jumps. There are a lot of time jumps, so before you read this, you should know about the time jumps because it can be a little confusing at first if you don't know about the time jumps, like I didn't, and I had no idea what was going on at first, and I was confused as heck because I was like, I don't know who any of these characters are. It's not giving me enough time to really care about them, but then once I really started to click and it's like, okay, here's the time jump, here's the time jump, because it keeps going from past to future to present, and yeah, it's hard to tell like when this is, and because it keeps skipping generations, I guess. It showed beginning was Maeve and her generation, and then it skipped to, and then there's her son's generation, and then her son's generation, and then her son's son's generation. And then it still shows flashbacks sometimes, like it showed how Maeve and her husband met for a few chapters. And then I know the book I'm currently reading, Matthew, is called Matthew because Matthew, who is Maeve's grandson, her son's son, returns to save his son and his wife from the Shadow Realm where he was kept for many centuries, and is showing his flashbacks of what he had to do to survive in the Shadow Realm and how he got all this power and darkness inside of him. So yeah, but so it can be a little confusing. So just once you start to figure out when the time jumps are and which characters are in which generation, because that's kind of the key clincher of when the time jumps happen. Like sometimes they'll talk about Maven Hunter, sometimes they'll talk about Alex, who's Maeve's son. Other times they'll talk about Alex and Celeste, his wife, and then Matthew and I forgot his wife's name now. Mariel, and then Matthew's son Justin, who was adopted because for his own safety, because Mariel's father trying to kill her, and then it's like I said, it can be confusing, but if you figure out the characters and who's in what century, who's in what generation, then you can figure out the time jumps. But it was pretty good, and I did like it, so I think you should read it. I probably just completely confused you, but I'm really bad at explaining that one book because it's hard to explain. You kind of just have to read it and then go with it. This is Rotten Rumen. There's 4 books and it's a zombie apocalypse world. I haven't read this in a really long time. I bought it kind of recently-ish. I haven't because I want to reread it because I remember really enjoying it. I would have been like 17 because I was a senior in high school. So I would have been about 17 when I read this. My reading teacher had a bookshelf and you could check out like a little mini library. Could check out books. I'm pretty sure I was the only one there because most people in those kind of classes didn't really like reading, and I guess that's why they had to be in there. I don't know why I was ever put in there because yeah, I struggled in school a lot, but English and reading were these only classes I did well in constantly because, well, I love reading and writing. So yeah, that makes sense. But so I'm pretty sure I was the only one that ever checked books out there because like most people in a reading class don't like reading. They're in the reading class because they don't like reading. And so yeah, but I love reading. I checked out her books and I remember checking out this series and I remember loving it. Don't hardly remember anything about it. I do know the main character's name is Benny, and he I guess when you turn a certain age, you have to have a job or the income for your food and stuff just goes away. You have to have some sort of job, and he couldn't get a job, so he had no choice but to go mentor with his older brother as a zombie hunter. And yeah, so he starts doing that. And then there's Nyx, who I think was my favorite character if I remember correctly. And then there was Lila. And yeah, so but it's basically like a post-apocalyptic. So it's after the zombies had already run. Everyone is already used to this. I think a lot of zombie shows or movies kind of start when the zombies happen or like shortly after, so everyone's still in shock. But at this point, everyone's used to it. Some people even grew up in this life and don't remember a time when there weren't zombies. I think Benny might be one of those kids. I think it's been happening for that long because he's a teenager. He's 15. So yeah. But so I think Benny's been used to this most of his life, so it's probably been going on for at least 15 years, maybe a little bit less, but yeah. So yeah, I remember really loving this, and I'll be rereading it soon, and I will do it. Maybe I'll do a reading log for it, or maybe I'll just do a reviews for each book and tell you if I still enjoy them. But yeah. So I can't wait to reread them and see if I still enjoy them because I remember really loving them when I was 17. Okay, I think the last book I'm going to recommend because all the other books on my shelf I haven't actually read yet. Even though I'm going to soon, I'm going to be reading all these books by the end of the year. Let's see if I can actually do that. No guarantee. All the books that I have not read. No guarantee, but I'm going to try. I have more time on my hands. But let's see. I bought a good portion of the Twisted Tale series, where it's like each book's a different fairy tale, and they're all and then they kind of twist it up. Like for the Beauty and the Beast one, the only one I've actually read so far is what if Belle's mother was the enchantress that cursed the beast. The only reason why I even found out about this series is because my sister bought me the Beauty and the Beast one years ago when I was in high school because I love Beauty and the Beast. It was my favorite fairy tale. There's one more that I have to buy now because I recently watched Hercules after I bought all these. So I have to buy the Hercules one now. And apparently a Rapunzel one is coming out soon, and so is a Peter Pan one. Peter Pan I think is coming out 2022. Rapunzel is coming out I think this September. I think September 7th is what it says. So I'm going to have to buy that. But yeah, so I didn't buy all of them because there's a few fairy tales I don't care about. Like, oh, didn't they already come out with Peter Pan one? Because I think they did. I'm not sure. But I don't care about Snow White or Cinderella, so I didn't buy those, obviously. And so yeah, and I have to buy the Hercules one now. But so I have the Mulan one, Alice in Wonderland, Frozen, Aladdin, uh, Sleeping Beauty, and Little Mermaid that I have to read now. And it doesn't matter what order you put them in, because I guess they're kind of like companion novels. Like they are part of the same series, but at the same time they don't really go together. You don't have to read them all to understand what the story and anything. So yeah. So Beauty and the Beast. If you're a fan of Beauty and the Beast, I say definitely give this a try because it's so good. It's an interesting take on the original story because it's like its own tale. It's Beauty and the Beast, but it's different because Belle's mother cursed the beast, and when they find that out, they have to figure that out, and they have to go find her because apparently, and there's also a lot of flashbacks to when Maurice met Belle's mom because Belle's mom's not dead here. I don't know if you've ever mentioned what happened to Belle's mom in the animated one, but in the live action one with Emma Watson, the plague got her, but be, but on here, her mother is still alive, and then they have to go searching for her to try and free the beast. And as they go on this journey together, they fall in love. And so she's not exactly in prison the entire story like she was on the original, because they both end up leaving the palace for their own safety and to save the beast and find out about Belle's past and to save all the servants that were cursed along with the beast, like Mrs. Potts and Lemire and Chip and Cogsworth. That's the name, right? The clock, yeah. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting take, and I definitely recommend this. It was really good. I ended up rating it 4 stars, and yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna rate the others 4 stars or at least 4 stars. I don't think because I doubt I'm gonna rate them more than Beauty and the Beast because I mean it's my favorite fairy tale. So I'll be very surprised if I end up rating them more. So yeah. And I think that's all of my recommendations for now. Once I read all these books, I will definitely be coming in with a part 2. And I will tell you about the other books that I've read that are fantasy, which are a lot of them. Um, so yeah. And then once I buy more fantasy books, I'll even come in with a part 3 and part 4. So this will probably end up becoming a series because I just love talking about my favorite series. And let's be real, my favorite series are always fantasy, unless you include Seekers, which owns my heart. But yeah, so I hope I inspired you to pick up some of these soon or whenever you have the time. Kristen, I hope you liked some of my suggestions, and I will come up with more. So if you end up reading all these and you need more, I will come up with another video once I read all these. So I'll have more suggestions for you soon. So here's just a start. Read these, see if you like them. I hope you do because I need people to talk with these series with. I don't have anyone. I don't know anyone who's read these. Like seriously, it's really sad. I need more people to have read some of my favorite series so I could just talk with. But I won't be talking with Jessica and Kristen soon when I read Shadow and Bone, and we will all talk about it. So I am happy about that. So yay. So that's it. Please like and subscribe and comment if you've read any of these, if you want to read any of these, and then we can chat below because I just really want to talk to people about my favorite series. And I'm out of breath and tired. It's I have no idea what time it is at this point, but I feel like crap all of a sudden. So I'm gonna lie down and finish changing my books. If you can follow me on Twitter, Goodreads, and Bookstagram as Secret Books. And I will be revealing my. I also have a Facebook group for my books, my published books. So author Johara Harper. So I will be revealing my cover arts for my first two books that I'm changing, and then for my cover reveal for my third book, which I have yet to publish. I'll be on my author Johara Harper group and on Twitter. So if you follow me on there, you can see that. I'll be doing that sometime tomorrow. So be looking for those, and I will talk to you guys later.